Chapter 17. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Begin all acts and thinking by using El-Kalim the All. Tablet 2. The Dream. 19 times 39 equals 741. Lo. Enkidu, your lips buzz like flies, they have led a legacy of grieving for next year. The dream has left a legacy of grief for next year. I shall go and offer prayers to the great Anunnaki. I shall search out your Anunnaki, look for you, her, Enlil, the father of the Anunnaki. To Enlil the counselor, father of the Anunnaki, I shall make a statue of you with countless gold. The words he spoke were not like him, what he said did not go back, did not alter. Enkidu raised his head, wept before Shamash, his tears flowed before the rays of the sun. I hereby beseech thou, Shamash, because my fate is different, because the hunter, the brigand, did not let me attain as much as my friend, let the hunter never attain as much as his friend, make his advantage vanish, make his strength less. When he had cursed the hunter as much as he wanted, he decided to curse the harlot too. Come, Shamhat, I shall fix a fate for you, curses that shall not cease forever and ever. I shall curse you with a great curse. Straightway my curses shall rise up against you. You shall never make your voluptuous gestures again, you shall not release you of your young bulls, you shall not let them into the girls' rooms. Filth shall impregnate your lovely lap. The drunkard shall soak your party dress with vomit. Your cosmetic paint shall be the potter's lump of clay. You shall never obtain the best cosmetic oil. Bright silver, people's affluence, shall not accumulate in your house. The crossroads shall be your only sitting place, waste ground your only lying place, the shade of a city wall, your only sitting place. Thorns and spikes shall skin your feet. The drunkard and the thirsty shall slap your cheek, the earth shall shout out against you. The builder shall never plaster the walls of your house. Owls will nest in your roof, beams feasting shall never take place in your house, because pure is in my open country. Shamash heard the utterance of his mouth. Immediately a loud voice called down to him from the sky, Enkidu, why are you cursing my harlot, Shamhat, who fed you on food fit for Anunnaki, gave you ale to drink, fit for kings, clothed you with a great robe, then provided you with Gilgamesh for a fine partner? And now Gilgamesh, the friend who is a brother to you, will lay you to rest on a great bed and lay you to rest on a bed of loving care, and let you stay in a restful dwelling, the dwelling on the left. Princes of the earth will kiss your feet. He will make the people of Uruk weep for thou, mourn for you, and he himself will neglect his appearance after your death. Clothed only in a lion skin, he will roam the open country. Enkidu listened to the speech of Shamash, the warrior. His anger abated, his heart became quiet. Come, Shamhat, I shall change your fate. My utterance, which curse thou, shall bless you instead. Governors and princes shall love you, the single-leagued man shall smite his thigh for you. The herdsman shall not hold back for you, he shall undo his belt for you. He shall give you ivory, lapis lazuli, and gold, rings and brooches shall be presents for you. Rain shall pour down for him, his storage jars shall be heaped full. The diviner shall lead you into the palace of the Anunnaki. Because of you, the mother of seven, the honored wife, shall be deserted. Then Enkidu wept, for he was sick at heart. He lay down alone. He spoke what was in his mind to his friend. Listen again, my friend. I had a dream in the shadow hour. The sky called out, the earth replied, I was standing in between them. There was a young man, whose face was obscured. His face was like that of an Anzu bird. He had the paws of a lion, he had the claws of an eagle. He seized me by my locks, using great force against me. I hit him, and he jumped like a keputoi, he hit me and forced me down, like a wild bull he trampled on me, he squeezed my whole body. I cried out, save me, my friend, don't desert me. But you were afraid, and did not help me, he hit me and turned me into a dove. Turns my arms, like a bird. He seized me, drove me down to the dark house, dwelling of Uruk-Allah's God, to the house which those who enter canst not leave, on the road where traveling is one way only, to the house where those who stay are deprived of light, where dust is their food, and clay their bread. They are clothed, like birds, with feathers, and they see no light, and they dwell in darkness. Over the door and the bolt, dust hast settled. I looked at the house that I had entered, and crowns were heaped up. Like those with crowns who had ruled the land from time immemorial, priests of Anu and Enlil regularly set out cooked meats, set out baked bread, set out cold water from waterskins. In the house of dust that I had entered dwelt the Enyu and Lagaru priests, dwelt the Isipu and Lumahu priests, dwelt the Udapsu priests of the great gods, dwelt Atana, dwelt Shakan, dwelt Ereshkigal, the queen of earth. Belitseri, the scribe of earth, was kneeling before her. She was holding a tablet and kept reading aloud to her. She raised her head and looked at me. Who brought this man? I experienced all kinds of troubles. Remember me, my friend. And do not forget what I went through. My friend saw an indescribable dream. From the day he saw the dream, his strength was finished. Enkidu lay there the first day, then a second day. The illness of Enkidu, as he lay in bed, grew worse, his flesh weaker. A third day and a fourth day, the illness of Enkidu grew worse, his flesh weaker. A fifth, sixth and seventh day, eighth, ninth and 10th. The illness of Enkidu grew worse, his flesh weaker. An 11th and 12th day his illness grew worse, his flesh weaker. Enkidu, as he lay in bed grew worse. Gilgamesh cried out, "My friend is cursing me. I was afraid of the fight. My friend, who was so strong in the fight, cursed me." When the first light of dawn appeared, Gilgamesh said to his friend, "Enkidu, my friend, your mother a gazelle, and your father a wild donkey sired you. Their milk was from onagers they reared you, and cattle made you familiar with all the pastures. Enkidu's paths led to the pine forest. They shall weep for you shadow hour and day, never fall silent, weep for you, the elders of the broad city, of Uruk the sheepfold. The summit will bless us after our death. They shall weep for you, the mountains. They shall mourn in the open country as if it were your father, the field as if it were your mother. They shall weep for you, myrtle, cypress, and pine, in the midst of which we armed ourselves in our fury. They shall weep for you, the bear, hyena, leopard, tiger, stag, cheetah, lion, wild bulls, deer, mountain goat, cattle, and other wild beasts of open country. It shall weep for you, the holy river Al-Aya, along whose bank we used to walk so proudly. It shall weep for you, the pure Euphrates, with whose water and waterskins we used to refresh ourselves. They shall weep for you, the young men of the broad city, of Uruk the sheepfold, who watched the fighting when we struck down the bull of heaven. He shall weep for you, the plowman at his plow who extols your name with sweet alala. He shall weep for thou, of the broad city of Uruk the sheepfold, who will extol your name in the first. He shall weep for you, the shepherd, the herdsman, who used to make the beer mixture for your mouth. She shall weep for you, the wet nurse who used to put butter on your lower parts. He shall weep for you, the elder who used to put ale to your mouth. She shall weep for you, the harlot Shamash, by whom you were anointed with perfumed oil. They shall weep for you, your parents-in-law who comfort the wife of your loins. They shall weep for thou, the young men, like brothers. They shall weep for you and tear out their hair over thou. For you, Enkidu, I, like your mother, your father, will weep on your plains. Listen to me, young men, listen to me. Listen to me, elders of Uruk, listen to me. I myself must weep for Enkidu my friend, mourn bitterly, like a wailing woman. As for the axe at my side, spur to my arm, the sword in my belt, the shield for my front, my festival clothes, my manly sash. Evil fate hast rose up and robbed me of them. My friend was the hunted mule, wild ass of the mountains, leopard of open country. Enkidu the strong man was the hunted wild ass of the mountains, leopard of open country. We who met, and scaled the mountain, seized the bull of heaven and slew it, demolished Mbaba the mighty one of the pine forest. Now, what is the sleep that have taken hold of you? Turn to me, you. You aren't listening to me. But he cannot lift his head. I touch his heart, but it does not beat at all. My friend has covered his face like a daughter-in-law. He circled over him like an eagle, like a lioness whose cubs are trapped in a pit. He paced back and forth. He tore out and spoiled his well-curled hair. He stripped off and threw away finery as if it were taboo. When the first light of dawn appeared, Gilgamesh sent out a shout through the land. The smith, the coppersmith, the silversmith and the jeweler were summoned. He made a likeness of his friend, he fashioned a statue of his friend. The four limbs of the friend were made of his chest was of lapis lazuli, his skin was of gold. I will lay you to rest on a bed of loving care, and will let you stay in a restful dwelling, a dwelling of the left. Princes of the earth will kiss your feet. I will make the people of Uruk weep for you, mourn for thou. I will fill the proud people with sorrow for you. And I myself will neglect my appearance after your death. And only in a lion skin, I will roam the open country. When the first light of dawn appeared, he undid the fittings of his garments. He displayed the earth to Shamash. It shall make the offering of cool water for him. It shall speak, lest his heart feel sorrow. Weigh its weight in lapis lazuli, of the pure Faradu, Euphrates. He displayed the earth to Shamash. He spoke of the broad earth. It shall go gladly at his side. He displayed the mashal tapu of the broad earth to Shamash. It shall go gladly at his side, whose top is lapis lazuli, inlaid with carnelian, and the judge of the Anunnaki. When Gilgamesh heard this, he was surprised. When the first light of dawn appeared, Gilgamesh opened it, set out a great table of Alamaku wood, and filled a carnelian bowl with honey. Filled a lapis lazuli bowl with butter, he decorated and displayed it to Shamash. Gilgamesh mourned bitterly for Enkidu his friend, and roamed open country. Shall I die too? Am I not like Enkidu? Grief has entered my innermost being, I am afraid of death, and so I roam open country. I shall take the road and go quickly, to see Utnapishtim, son of Ubratutu. When I reached the mountain passes at shadow hour, I saw lions and was afraid. I raised my head, I prayed to Sin. My prayers went to Sin, the light of the Anunnaki. Oh Anunnaki, keep me safe. He went to sleep, awoke at a dream, he was glad to be alive. He took up an axe to his side. Drew the sword from his belt. Like an arrow he fell among them, struck and shattered. Then on midday he threw down and gave in the name of the first, the name of the second, the name of the mountain is Mashu. When he reached the mountain Mashu, which daily guards the coming out of Shamash, their upper parts touch the sky's foundation, below, their breasts reach Aralu. They guard its gate, scorpion men, whose aura is frightful, and whose glance is death. Their terrifying mantles of radiance drape the mountains. They guard the sun at dawn and dusk. Gilgamesh looked at them, and fear and terror clouded his face. He took the initiative and gestured to them in greeting. A scorpion man shouted to his woman, "Someone has come to us. His body is the flesh god's." The scorpion man's woman answered him. 2/3 of him is divine, and 1/3 of him mortal. The scorpion man, the male, shouted, addressed his words to Gilgamesh, the flesh of the Anunnaki. "Who are you, that comes to us on a distant journey? Who are you that comes to my presence, who's crossing difficult? Let me learn your personality." Utnapishtim, my father who stood in the Anunnaki's assembly and sought out eternal life. Death and life, the scorpion man made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "It is impossible, Gilgamesh, nobody has passed through the mountain's inaccessible tract. For even after 12 leagues, the darkness is too dense, there is no light. To the dawn, to the dusk, they sent out in grief. By cold and heat my face is weathered in exhaustion." The scorpion man made his voice heard and spoke. He said to Gilgamesh, "Go, Gilgamesh, to the Mashu mountain safely, to the main gate of the land." Gilgamesh listened to the scorpion man, to the words of the guardian of the gate. The path of Shamash when he had achieved 1 league. The darkness was dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 2 leagues. When he had achieved 4 leagues, he hurried on, the darkness was still dense, there was no light. It was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 5 leagues, he hurried on, the darkness was still dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 6 leagues, he hurried on, the darkness was still dense, there was no light. It was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 8 leagues, he hurried. The darkness was still dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 9 leagues, the north wind. But the darkness was still dense, there was no light, it was impossible for him to see ahead or behind. When he had achieved 10 leagues, he came close. He came out in front of the sun. Brightness was everywhere. All kinds of thorny, prickly, spiky bushes were visible, blossoming with gemstones. Carnelian bore fruit hanging in clusters, lovely to look at. Lapis lazuli bore foliage, bore fruit, and was delightful to view. Its fronds of white pappardillu stone, silarusu of sasu stone. Like brambles and thorn bushes of stone. Carob trees of green abasmu stone, subu stone, hematite, riches and wealth like turquoise which was of the sea. As Gilgamesh walked around, he raised his eyes. Siduri the alewife, who lives down by the sea, vat stands are made for her, fermentation vats, are made for her, covered by a covering. Gilgamesh was pacing around. Clad only in a lion skin. He had the flesh of Allahum upon his body, but grief was in his innermost being. His face was like that of a long-distance traveler. The alewife looked at him from a distance. She pondered in her heart, and spoke a word, to herself, and she advised herself. Perhaps this man is an assassin. Is he going somewhere? The alewife looked at him and locked her door. She locked her door, locked it with a bolt. Then he, Gilgamesh, noticed, raised his chin and Gilgamesh spoke to her, to the alewife, "Alewife, why did you look at me and lock your door? Lock your door, lock it with a bolt. I will smash the door, I will shatter the bolt." We destroyed Humbaba, who lived in the pine forest. We killed lions at the mountain passes. The alewife spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, "If you are truly Gilgamesh, that struck down the guardian, destroyed Humbaba, who lived in the pine forest, killed lions at the mountain passes, seized the bull of heaven who came down from the sky, struck him down, why are your cheeks wasted, your face dejected? Your heart so wretched, your appearance worn out, and grief in your innermost being? Your face is like that of a long-distance traveler. Your face is weathered by cold and heat. Clad only in a lion's skin you roam open country. Gilgamesh spoke to her, to Siduri the alewife, how could my cheeks not be wasted, nor my face dejected, nor my heart wretched, nor my appearance worn out, nor grief in my innermost being, nor my face like that of a long-distance traveler, nor my face weathered by cold and heat, nor roaming open country, clad only in a lion's skin. My friend who I love so much, who experienced every hardship with me, Enkidu, whom I love so much, who experienced every hardship with me, the fate of mortals conquered him. 6 days and 7 shadow hours I wept over him. I did not allow him to be buried, until a worm fell out of his nose. I was frightened and I am afraid of death, and so I roam open country. The words of my friend weigh upon me. I roam open country for long distances, the words of my friend Enkidu weigh upon me. I roam open country on long journeys. How? Oh, how could I stay silent? How? Oh, how could I keep quiet? Enkidu, my friend who I love, turned to clay. Am I not like him? Must I lie down too, never to rise, ever again? Gilgamesh spoke to her, to the alewife, now, alewife, which is the way to Utnapishtim? Give me directions, whatever they are, give me directions. If it is possible, it shall cross the sea. If it is impossible, I shall roam open country again. The alewife spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, there has never been a fairy of any kind, Gilgamesh, and nobody from time immemorial has crossed the sea. Shamash the warrior is the only one who has crossed the sea. Apart from Shamash, nobody has crossed the sea. The crossing is difficult, the way of it very difficult, and in between are lethal waters which bar the way ahead. Wherever, then, could you cross the sea, Gilgamesh? And once you reach the lethal waters, what would you do? Yet there is, Gilgamesh, a boatman of Utnapishtim, Shamash, he the things of stone identify him, it will be trimming a young pine in the forest. Go, and let him see your face. If it is possible, cross with him. If it is impossible, retreat back. When Gilgamesh heard this, he took up an axe to his side, drew the sword from his belt, stole up and drove them off. Like an arrow he fell among them. In the midst of the forest the noise resounded. Shamash looked and drew his sword, took up an axe and crept up on him. Then he, Gilgamesh, hit him on the head, seized his arms and his chest. And the things of stone, the boat and the waters he held back. He smashed them to the river. Of the boat and on the bank. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Shamash the boatman, I shall enter to you. Shamash spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, why are your cheeks wasted, your face dejected, your heart so wretched, your appearance worn out, and grief in your innermost being? Your face is like that of a long-distance traveler. Your face is weathered by cold and heat, clad only in a lion skin, you roam open country. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Shamash, the boatman, how could my cheeks not be wasted, nor my face dejected, nor my heart wretched, nor my appearance worn out, nor grief in my innermost being, nor my face like that of a long-distance traveler, nor my face weathered by wind and heat, nor roaming open country clad only in a lion skin? My friend was the hunted mule, wild ass of the mountain, leopard of open country. Enkidu, my friend, was the hunted mule, wild ass of the mountain, leopard of open country. We who met, and scaled the mountain, seized the bull of heaven and slew it. Demolished Mbaba who dwelt in the pine forest, killed lions in the passes of the mountains. Enkidu, my friend whom I love so much, who experienced every hardship with me, the fate of mortals conquered him. For 6 days and 7 shadow hours I wept over him. I did not allow him to be buried until a worm fell out of his nose. I was frightened. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Utnapishtim, so I thought I would go to see Utnapishtim the far distant, of whom people speak. I searched, went through all countries, passed through and through difficult lands, and crossed to and fro all seas. My face never had enough of sweet sleep, my fiber was filled with grief. I made myself over anxious by lack of sleep. What did I gain from my toils? I did not make a good impression on the alewife, for my clothes were finished. I killed a bear, hyena, lion, leopard, tiger, deer, mountain goat, cattle, and other wild beasts of open country. I ate meat from them, I spread out their skins. Let her door be bolted against grief with pitch and bitumen. Because of me, games are spoiled, my own misfortunes have reduced me to misery. Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, why do you prolong grief, Gilgamesh? Since the Anunnaki made you like your father and mother, death is inevitable at some time, both for Gilgamesh and for a fool, but a throne is set down for you in the assembly. To a fool is given dregs instead of butter, rubbish and sweepings clothed in a loincloth because he has no sense, has no word of advice. Gilgamesh raised his head, why have you exerted yourself? What have you achieved? You have made yourself weary for lack of sleep, you only fill your flesh with grief, you only bring the distant days of reckoning closer. Mankind's fame is cut down like reeds in a reed bed. A fine young man, a fine girl, nobody sees death, nobody sees the face of death, nobody hears the voice of death. Savage death just cuts mankind down. Sometimes we build a house, sometimes we make a nest, but then brothers divided upon inheritance. Sometimes there is hostility in the land, but then the river rises and brings floodwater. Dragonflies drift on the river, their faces look upon the face of the sun, but then suddenly there is nothing. The primitive man is as any young man. When they blessed me, the Anunnaki, the great Anunnaki, assembled, Mammotum who creates fate decreed destinies with them. They appointed death and life. They did not mark out days for death, but they did so for life. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Utnapishtim the far distant, I look at thou, Utnapishtim, and your limbs are no different, you are just like me. Indeed, you are not at all different, you are just like me. I feel the urge to prove myself against thou, to pick a fight against thou, you lie on your back. How you came to stand in the Anunnaki's assembly and sought eternal life? Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, let me reveal to you a closely guarded matter, Gilgamesh, and let me tell you the secret of the Anunnaki. The sleeping and the dead are just like each other, death's picture cannot be drawn. Uruk is a city that you yourself know, situated on the bank of the Euphrates. That city was already old when the Anunnaki within it decided that the great Anunnaki should make a flood. There was Anu their father, warrior, Enlil their counselor, Ninurta was their chamberlain, Inuhi their canal controller. Farsighted Enki swore the oath of secrecy with them, so he repeated their speech to a reed hut, reed hut, reed hut, brick wall, listen, reed hut, and pay attention, brick wall, man of Shurupal, son of Ubratutu, dismantle your house, build a boat. Leave possessions, search out living things. Reject chattels and save lives. Put aboard the seat of all living things, into the boat. The boat that you are to build shall have her dimensions in proportion, her width and length shall be in harmony, roof her like the Apsu. I realized and spoke to my master Enki, I have paid attention to the words that you spoke in this way, my master, and I shall act upon them. But how can I explain myself to the city, the men and the elders? Enki made his voice heard and spoke. He said to me, his servant, you shall speak to them thus, I think that Enlil hast rejected me, and so I cannot stay in your city, and I cannot set foot on Enlil's land again. I must go down to the Apsu and stay with my master Enki. Then he will shower abundance upon thou, a wealth of fowl, a treasure of fish, prosperity, a harvest, in the morning a cake's darkness, in the evening a rain of wheat heaviness he will shower upon thou. When the first light of dawn appeared the country gathered about me. The carpenter brought his axe, the reed worker brought his stone, the young man and the children carried the bitumen, the poor fetched what was needed. On the 5th day, I laid down her form. 1 acre was her circumference, 10 poles each, the height of her walls, her top edge was likewise 10 poles all round. I laid down her structure, drew it out, gave her 6 decks, divided her into 7. Her middle I divided into 9, drove the water pegs into her middle. I saw to the paddles and put down what was needed, 3 sar of bitumen I poured into the kiln, 3 sar of pitch I poured into the inside. 3 sar of oil they fetched, the workmen who carried the baskets. Not counting the sar of oil which the dust soaked up, the boatmen stowed away 2 more sar of oil. I slaughtered oxen. I sacrificed sheep every day. I gave the workmen ale and beer to drink, oil and wine as if they were river water. They made a feast, like a New Year's Day festival. When the sun rose, I provided hand oil. When the sun went down the boat was complete. The launching was difficult, launching rollers had to be fetched from above to below. 2/3 of it stood clear of the water line. I loaded her with everything there was, loaded her with all the silver, loaded her with all the gold, loaded her with all the seed of living things, all of them I put on board the boat, all my kith and kin. Put on board cattle from open country, wild beasts from open country, all kinds of craftsmen. Shamash had fixed the hour, in the daylight hours cakes darkened, in the dusk period a rain of wheat heaviness. I shall shower down, enter into the boat and shut your door. That hour arrived, in the daylight hour, cakes darkness, in the dusk period a rain of wheat heaviness showered down. I saw the shape of the storm was terrifying to see. I went aboard the boat and closed the door. To seal the boat I handed over the floating palace with her cargo to Puzu Amuru the boatman. When the first light of dawn appeared, a black cloud came up from the base of the sky. Adad kept rumbling inside it. Shulat and Hanish were marching ahead, marched as chamberlains over the mountain and country. Herakle pulled out the mooring poles, Ninurta marched on and made the weirs overflow. The Anunnaki had to carry torches, they lit up the land with their brightness. The calm before the storm god came over the sky, everything light turned to darkness. On the first day the tempest rose up, blew swiftly and brought the flood weapon. Like a battle force the destructive Kesusu weapon passed over the people. No man could see his fellow, nor could people be distinguished from the sky. Even the Allahum were afraid of the flood weapon. They withdrew, they went up to the heaven of Anu. The Allahum cowered, like dogs crouched by an outside wall. Ishtar screamed like a woman giving birth. The mistress of the Anunnaki, sweet of voice, was wailing, "Has that time really returned to clay, because I spoke evil in the Anunnaki's assembly? How could I have spoken such evil in the Anunnaki's assembly? I should have ordered a battle to destroy my people, yet they fill the sea like fish spawn." The Yahuwahs of the Anunnaki were weeping with her. The Allahum, humbled, sat there weeping. Their lips were closed and covered with scab. For days and 7 shadow hours, the wind blew, flood and tempest overwhelmed the land. When the 7th day arrived the tempest, flood and onslaught, which had struggled like a woman in labor, blew themselves out. The sea became calm, the Evilu wind grew quiet, the flood held back. I looked at the weather, silence reigned, for all mankind had returned to clay. The flood plain was flat as a roof. I opened a porthole and light fell on my cheeks. I bent down, then sat, I wept. My tears ran down my cheeks. I looked for banks, for limits to the sea. Areas of land were emerging everywhere. The boat had come to rest on Mount Nimush. The mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. The first and second day the mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. The third and fourth day the mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. The fifth and sixth day the mountain Nimush held the boat fast and did not let it budge. When the 7th day arrived, I put out and released a dove. The dove went, it came back, for no perching place was visible to it, and it turned round. I put on and released a swallow. The swallow went, it came back, for no perching place was visible to it, and it turned round. I put out and released a raven. The raven went, and saw the waters receding. And it ate, preened and lifted its tail and did not turn round. Then I put everything out of the 4 winds, and I made a sacrifice, set out a Circanu offering upon the mountain peak, arranged the jars 7 and 7. Into the bottom of them I poured essences of reeds, pine, and myrtle. The Anunnaki smelt the fragrance, the Anunnaki smelt the pleasant fragrance, the Anunnaki like flies gathered over the sacrifice. As soon as the mistress of the Anunnaki arrived, she raised the great flies which Anu had made to please her. Behold, O Anunnaki, I shall never forget the significance of my lapis lazuli necklace. I shall remember these times, and I shall never forget. Let other Anunnaki come to the Circanu offering, but let Enlil not come to the Circanu offering, because he did not consult before imposing the flood, and consigned my people to destruction. As soon as Enlil arrived, he saw the boat. Enlil was furious, filled with anger at the Agigi. What sort of life survived? No man should have lived through the destruction. Ninurta made his voice heard and spoke. He said to the warrior Enlil, who other than Enki would have done such a thing? For Enki can do everything. Enki made his voice heard and spoke. He said to the warrior Enlil, you are the sage of the Anunnaki, warrior. So how, oh how, could fail to consult and impose the flood? Punish the sinner for his sin, punish the criminal for his crime, but ease off, let work not cease, be patient. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a lion come up and diminish the people. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a wolf come up and diminish the people. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a famine be imposed and diminish the people. Instead of your imposing a flood, let a era rise up and savage the people. I did not disclose the secret of the great Anunnaki, I just showed Utnapishtim a dream, and thus, he heard the secret of the Anunnaki. Now the advice that prevailed was his advice. Enlil came up into the boat, and seized my hand and led me up. He led up my woman and made her kneel down at my side. He touched our foreheads, stood between us, blessed us, until now Utnapishtim was mortal, but henceforth Utnapishtim and his woman shall be as we Anunnaki are. Utnapishtim shall dwell far off at the mouth of the rivers. They took me and made me dwell far off, at the mouth of the rivers. So now, who can gather the Anunnaki on your behalf, Gilgamesh, that you too may find eternal life which you seek? For a start, you must not sleep for 6 days and 7 shadow hours. As soon as he was sitting, with his head between his knees, sleep breathed over him like a fog. Utnapishtim spoke to her, to his wife, look at the young man who wants eternal life, sleep breathes over him like a fog. His wife spoke to him, Utnapishtim the far distant, touch him, and let man wake up. Let him go back in peace the way he came. Go back to his country through the great gate, through which he once left. Utnapishtim spoke to her, to his wife, man behaves badly, he will behave badly towards you. For a start, bake a daily portion for him, put it each time by his head, and mark on the wall the days that he sleeps. She baked a daily portion for him, put it each time by his head, and marked on the wall for him the days that he slept. His first day's portion was dried out, the second was going bad, the third was soggy, the fourth had white mold on, the fifth was discolored, the sixth was stinking, the seventh at that moment that he touched him and the man woke up. Gilgamesh spoke to Utnapishtim the far distant. No sooner had sleep come upon me, than you touched me, straight away, and roused me. Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, Look, Gilgamesh, count your daily portions, that the number of days you slept may be proved to thou. Your first day ration is dried out, the second is going bad, the third is soggy, the fourth has white mold on it, the fifth has discolored, the sixth is stinking, the seventh at that moment you woke up. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Utnapishtim, how could I have done it, Utnapishtim? Wherever can I go? The snatchers have blocked my routes, death is waiting in my bedroom, and wherever I set my foot, death is there too. Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Ur-Shanabi the boatman, Ur-Shanabi, the key will cast you out, the fairy will reject thou, be deprived of her side, at whose side you once went. The man whom you led, filthy hair fetters his body, skins have ruined the beauty of his flesh. Take him, Ur-Shanabi, bring him to a wash bowl, and let him wash in water his filthy hair, as clean as possible. Let him throw away his skins, and let the sea carry them off. Let his body be soaked until it is fresh. Put a new headband on his head. Have him wear a robe as a proud garment, until he comes to his city, until he reaches his journey's end. The garment shall not discolor, but stay absolutely new. Ur-Shanabi took him and brought him to a wash bowl, and he washed in water his filthy hair, as clean as possible. He threw away his skins, and the sea carried them off. His body was soaked until it was fresh. He put a new headband on his head. He wore a robe as a proud garment, until he came to his city, until he reached his journey's end. The garment would not discolor, and stayed absolutely new. Gilgamesh and Ur-Shanabi embarked on the boat. They cast off the Majalu boat and sailed away. His wife spoke to him, to Utnapishtim. Gilgamesh came, weary, striving, what will you give him to take back to his country? And Gilgamesh out there raised the pole, he brought the boat near the shore. Utnapishtim spoke to him, to Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh, you came weary, striving, what can I give you to take back to your country? Let me reveal a closely guarded matter, Gilgamesh, and let me tell you the secret of the Anunnaki. There is a plant whose root is like camel thorn, whose thorn, like a rose, will spike your hands. If you yourself can win that plant, you will find rejuvenation. When Gilgamesh heard this, he opened the pipe, he tied heavy stones to his feet. They dragged him down into the Apsu, and he saw the plant. He took the plant himself, it spiked his hands. He cut the heavy stones from his feet. The sea threw him up onto its shore. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Ur-Shanabi, the boatman, Ur-Shanabi, this plant is a plant to cure a crisis, with it a man may win the breath of life. I shall take it back to Uruk the sheepfold, I shall give it to an elder to eat, and so try out the plant. Its name shall be, an old man grows into a young man. At 20 leagues they ate their ration. At 30 the leagues stopped for the shadow hour. Gilgamesh saw a pool whose water was cool, and went down into the water and washed. A snake smelt the fragrance of the plant. It came up silently and carried off the plant. As it took it away, it shed its scaly skin. Thereupon Gilgamesh sat down and wept. His tears flowed over his cheeks. He spoke to Ur-Shanabi the boatman, for what purpose, Ur-Shanabi, have my arms grown weary? For what purpose was the blood inside me so red? I did not gain an advantage for myself, I have given the advantage to the lion of the ground. Now the current will carry 20 leagues away. While I was opening the pipe, arranging the gear, I found a door thong which must have been set there as an omen for me. I shall give up, and I have left the boat on the shore. At 20 leagues they ate their ration. At 30 leagues they stopped for the shadow hour. They reached Uruk the sheepfold. Gilgamesh spoke to him, to Ur-Shanabi, the boatman, go up onto the wall of Uruk, Ur-Shanabi, and walk around. Inspect the foundation platform and scrutinize the brickwork. Testify that its bricks are baked bricks and that the 7 counselors must have laid its foundations. 1 square mile is city, 1 square mile is orchards, 1 square mile is clay pits, as well as the open ground of Ishtar's temple. 3 square miles and the open ground comprise Uruk. If only I had led the Puku in the carpenter's house today. I would have left the carpenter's wife like the mother who bore me, I would have left the carpenter's daughter like my little sister. Today the Puku fell into the earth and my Meku fell into the earth. Enkidu asked Gilgamesh, my ruler, what did you weep for, and your heart grow sad? I shall bring up the Puku and Meku from the earth today. Gilgamesh said to Enkidu, if you go down to the earth, you must follow my instructions. You must not put on a clean garment, for they will recognize that you are a stranger. You must not be anointed with perfumed oil from an ointment jar, for they will gather around you at the smell of it. You must not toss a throw stick into the earth, for those who are hit by the throw stick will encircle you. You must not raise a club in your hands, for ghosts will flit around you. You must not put shoes on your feet, lest you make a noise in the earth. You must not kiss the wife you love. You must not hit the wife you hate. You must not kiss the son you love. You must not hit the son you hate, for the earth's outcry will seize you. She who sleeps and sleeps, the mother of Ninazu who sleeps. Her pure shoulders are not covered with a garment, her breasts are not pendulous like an ointment jar in a SABAT-U basin. He did not follow his ruler's instructions. He put on a clean garment, so they recognized that he was a stranger. He was anointed with perfumed oil from an ointment jar. So they gathered around him at the smell of it. He tossed a throw stick into the earth, so those who were hit by the throw stick encircled him. He raised a club in his hands, so ghosts flitted around him. He put shoes on his feet, he made a noise in the earth. He kissed the wife he loved, he hit the wife he hated, he kissed the son he loved, he hit the son he hated, and the earth's outcry did seize him. She who sleeps and sleeps, the mother of Ninazu who sleeps. Her pure shoulders were not covered with a garment, her breasts were not pendulous like an ointment jar in a SABAT-U basin. When Enkidu tried to go up again out of the earth, Namtar did not seize him, nor did Asaku seize him, the earth seized him. The Croucher, Ukkur the Merciless, did not seize him, the earth seized him. He did not fall in a fight among the earth seized him. Then the son of Ninsen went and wept for his servant Enkidu. He went off on his own to Ikur and Lil's temple. Father Enlil, today the Puku and the Meku fell into the earth. The Croucher, Ukkur the Merciless did not seize him. Father Enlil answered him not a word, so he went off alone to Sin's temple. Father Sin, today the Puku and Meku fell into earth. The earth seized Enkidu, who went down to bring them up. Namtar did not seize him, nor did Asaku seize him, the earth seized him. The Croucher, Ukkur the Merciless, not seize him, the earth seized him. He did not fall in a fight among males, the earth seized him. Father Sin answered him not a word, so he went off alone to Enki's temple. Father Enki, today the Puku and Meku fell into earth. The earth seized Enkidu, who down to bring them up. Namtar did not seize him, nor did Asaku seize him, the earth seized him. The Croucher, Ukkur the Merciless, did not seize him, the earth seized him. He did not fall in a fight among males, the earth seized him. Father Enki answered him, he spoke to the warrior Ukkur, warlike young man Ukkur. You must open up a hole in the earth now, so that the spirit of Enkidu came out of the earth like a gust of wind. They hugged and kissed, discussed, they agonized. Tell me, friend, tell me earth's conditions that found. I can't tell thou, my friend, I can't tell thou. If I tell you earth's conditions that I found, you must sit and weep. Your wife whom you touched and your heart was glad, ermine like an old garment. Your son whom you touched, and your heart was glad, sits in a crevice full of dust. Wo she said, and grovelled in the dust. Wo he said, and grovelled in the dust. I saw the father of one whom you once saw, he weeps bitterly over it. I saw the father of two whom you once saw, he eats bread sitting on 2 bricks. I saw the father of 3 whom you once saw, he drinks water from a water skin. I saw the father of 4 whom you once saw, his heart glad with a team of 4. I saw the father of 5 whom you once saw, like a first-rate scribe he is open-handed, enters the palace as a matter of course, like a fine emblem. I saw him, whom you saw die a sudden death, he lies in bed and drinks pure water. I saw the father of 6 whom you once saw, I saw him, whom you saw killed in battle, his father and mother honor him and his wife weeps over him. I saw him, whose corpse you saw abandoned in the open country, his ghost does not sleep in the earth. I saw him whom you saw, whose ghost has nobody to supply it. He feeds on dregs from dishes, and bits of bread that lie abandoned in the streets. This is how it was recorded and this is how it will be.